The campaign to become California's next governor is down to two candidates, Democrat Gavin Newsom and Republican John Cox.
But the major theme leading up to the November election will likely be President Donald Trump. KCAL 9 political reporter Dave Bryan joins us now with the reason why. Dave.
Well, so it could actually feel like there are three candidates in this race because the president could have a great impact. It's not like California doesn't have any important statewide and local issues to debate. There are plenty of them. But the impact of President Trump on the politics of this state has been enormous. And now it's possible the other important issues could take a back seat to a referendum on a candidate the Democrats will try to portray as a Trump surrogate.
The people of California spoke. They want a real debate. They want a change in California. Gavin Newsom represents the status quo.
This is going to be a very, I think, easy race to explain to folks, that contrast, and we're looking forward to a vigorous debate.
Just hours after the vast majority of primary votes had already been counted, the two candidates still standing in the race for governor, Democrat Gavin Newsom and Republican John Cox, were already preparing to launch their fall campaigns. And there is a long list of serious issues, including the lack of affordable housing, the rapidly increasing homeless population, financially struggling public education systems, and of course the gas tax controversy.
I'm going to make gasoline affordable again. We're going to make housing affordable again.
Well, I think the housing issue is a critical issue that has to be addressed head on. The issue of homelessness is unacceptable.
But perhaps overshadowing those important day-to-day issues will be this man, President Donald Trump.
Well, there's going to be a mix of issues, but if Gavin Newsom has anything to do with it, a large part of the debate is going to be about Trump.
In fact, the sparring already began on Wednesday when the president fired off this tweet in which he congratulated Cox, whom he had endorsed, and took credit, claiming the Trump impact was really big. After which he concluded with, "So much for the big blue wave. It may be a big red wave. Working hard." Newsom responded quickly, inviting President Trump to please come campaign for Cox as much as possible.
I'd run, not walk away from the brand of being a Trump Republican. My opponents run towards that. He's going to have to explain.
I'm also very, very honored and proud that the president has endorsed my candidacy for governor. He's done that because I'm a businessman like him. I've achieved results in the private sector, just like he did.
Cox often brought up President Trump in his stump speeches during the campaign, but he walked a political tightrope, embracing the Trump economic policies and foreign affairs, but staying away from the more volatile language Trump has used in scapegoating immigrants for America's crime problems and attacking African-American sports figures for their protests at NFL football games, most recently going after the Super Bowl Philadelphia Eagles players who didn't want to attend a White House celebration event.
We could stand up to Donald Trump, or we can let his protege, John Cox, continue his assault on our values.
In fact, Newsom couldn't wait for the fall campaign. His campaign was already running TV ads like this during the primary season, showing Cox and Trump embracing one another.
In the end, Newsom is going to gain because of the prominence of Trump. Trump lost California by a large margin. In fact, California is the reason why he lost the national popular vote, and he hasn't become any more popular in the state. Newsom's going to talk a lot about Trump, about opposing Trump. Cox is going to talk about Trump to energize his supporters, but there are a lot more opponents of Trump than supporters.
Well, now the candidates are expected to start focusing on putting their campaign strategies together, and perhaps even more important, raising the money to fuel their campaigns. That will be the next test for Newsom and Cox.
Well, you talk about raising money, funding, always a big part of running for office in California. Does John Cox have the funding to be competitive in this race?
Well, there are some questions being raised tonight about that. And here's the issue. Professor Pitney, who we saw in that report, says Republican Cox may also be fighting an uphill fight when it comes to campaign funding. He says although Cox has been a successful businessman, he probably doesn't have enough by himself to completely finance a statewide top-of-the-ticket campaign. And Pitney says fundraising may not be easy for a little-known candidate in an overwhelmingly blue state, especially with lots of GOP funding going to go to those Republican candidates in the congressional districts targeted by Democrats who are trying to take control of Congress. Crystal, Lena, back to you.